The crystal chandelier trembled as Oliver Montague pushed through the mahogany doors of the Golden Terrace. Every waiter in the restaurant scattered like startled birds, suddenly finding urgent tasks that required their immediate attention. The man who had just entered was worth $3 billion and had the temperament of a winter storm. Emma Sinclair adjusted her black apron with trembling fingers. Today marked her first shift at Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, where a single meal cost more than her monthly rent. She watched the tall figure stride across the marble floor, his perfectly tailored suit moving like liquid shadow in the ambient lighting. "Table 12, whispered Sophia Chen, the restaurant manager, gently pushing Emma toward certain doom. "I know it's your first day, but I need you to serve him." Emma studied the man who had just settled into the corner booth. Oliver Montague possessed the kind of devastating good looks that belonged on magazine covers. His dark hair was styled with military precision, and his gray eyes held the coldness of Arctic ice. The expensive watch on his wrist caught the light like captured starfire. "Why does everyone act like he's dangerous?" Emma asked, smoothing down her chestnut-brown hair that refused to stay in its ponytail. Sophia's expression mixed pity with admiration for Emma's courage. "Because he is. 3 servers have quit after dealing with him. One actually cried in the storage room for an hour." Oliver Montague was perfection wrapped in arrogance. The tech mogul had built his empire from nothing, turning a small software company into a global powerhouse. Forbes had crowned him the youngest billionaire in New York, and apparently success had frozen his heart solid. Emma couldn't afford to lose this job. Her grandmother Rosa needed expensive medications, and the rent on their small Queens apartment was due next week. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward table 12 with determination burning in her green eyes. Oliver didn't look up from his phone when she approached. His fingers moved across the screen with the precision of a concert pianist, probably making deals worth millions while she stood there like a nervous statue. "Good evening. I'm Emma, and I'll be your server tonight. Can I start you with something? To drink, water, room temperature, no ice, no lemon. Bring it in a wine glass, not a water glass." His voice was deep and commanding, delivered without a glance in her direction. Emma blinked. The man had just given her instructions like she was a malfunctioning robot that needed precise programming. "Of course. Anything else you'd like to order while I'm getting your water?" "The seafood risotto, no mushrooms, extra saffron, and tell the chef if it's overcooked even slightly, I'll send it back." "Perfect. One risotto prepared exactly to your standards." Emma's voice carried just enough sweetness to border on sarcasm. For the first time, Oliver lifted his gaze. His gray eyes studied her face with the intensity of a detective examining evidence. Something flickered across his features. Surprise, maybe, or curiosity about the waitress who wasn't cowering in fear. "You're new here," he observed, leaning back in the leather booth. "Brand new, fresh as morning coffee." Emma met his stare without flinching. "Is that a problem for you?" Oliver's eyebrows rose slightly. The other servers usually stammered apologies and practically genuflected when addressing him. This young woman was treating him like a regular customer, not a billionaire. Emperor. Most people are more. He paused, searching for the right word. "Careful around me. Most people probably think you're more important than you actually are." The words escaped before Emma could stop them. The silence that followed was so complete that other diners turned to stare. Oliver Montague had been challenged by a waitress on her first day. The entire restaurant held its breath, waiting for the explosion. Instead, Oliver began to laugh. The sound was rich and genuine, transforming. His entire face from marble statue to flesh and blood human being. Other patrons looked around in confusion. Oliver Montague laughing was like witnessing a solar eclipse. "You have an interesting approach to customer service," he said, genuine amusement dancing in his eyes. "I prefer honesty to fake politeness. Life's too short for pretending." Emma tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Plus, my grandmother always said that money doesn't make someone special. Character does. Your grandmother sounds wise. Oliver closed his phone and gave Emma his complete attention. What else does she say? Emma found herself relaxing despite every instinct screaming that she should be terrified. She says that the rudest customers are usually the loneliest people. They push others away because they're afraid of being disappointed. Oliver's expression grew thoughtful, as if Emma had just revealed a secret he'd been hiding from himself. Bring me that water, Emma, and take your time with the risotto order. I'm in no hurry tonight. When Emma returned with his water, perfectly prepared according to his specifications, Oliver was studying the restaurant's atmosphere with new eyes. The golden lighting, the soft jazz music, the couples sharing intimate conversations over expensive wine. How long have you been working in restaurants? He asked as she set down the wine glass. About 5 years, but never anywhere this fancy. Usually diners and coffee shops where the biggest drama is running out of pie. Emma hesitated, then decided to continue being honest. This job means everything to me. My grandmother is sick, and the insurance doesn't cover her medications. Something shifted in Oliver's expression. The Arctic coldness melted slightly, revealing glimpses of warmth underneath. What kind of medications? Heart medication. It costs $800 a month. Emma immediately regretted sharing such personal information with a stranger. Oliver nodded slowly, processing this information with the same intensity he probably used for business deals. Your risotto will be ready soon. The chef here is exceptional when he follows instructions properly. 20 minutes later, Emma returned with a plate that looked like edible artwork. The risotto was golden perfection, fragrant with saffron and dotted with perfectly cooked seafood. Oliver tasted it with the seriousness of a food critic. Excellent, he pronounced. You can tell the chef he met my standards. I'll let him know. He'll probably faint from relief. Emma smiled, and Oliver found himself studying her face again. She had the kind of natural beauty that didn't need enhancement. Her green eyes sparkled with intelligence and humor, and her smile was genuine in a way he rarely encountered in his world of calculated social interactions. Emma, he said as she began to turn away, would you like to sit down for a moment? Every rule of restaurant etiquette screamed that she should decline, but something in his voice made her pause. Oliver Montague, the man who terrified experienced servers, was asking for her company. I probably shouldn't. Sophia might think I'm slacking off on my first day. Sophia works for me. I own 40% of this restaurant. Oliver's revelation hit like a thunderbolt. Sit, please. Emma slid into the booth across from him, suddenly aware that she was having dinner with one of the most powerful men in the city. You own part of the Golden Terrace? I own parts of many things. Hotels, restaurants, technology companies. It's what happens when you turn business into an obsession. Oliver's voice carried a note of something that might have been regret. Joie. You enjoy it? All the power and money and making people nervous? The question was so direct that Oliver actually paused his fork halfway to his mouth. Enjoy is the wrong word. It's necessary. In business, if you show weakness, people will destroy you. But we're not in a business meeting right now. We're just two people sharing a conversation over dinner. Emma gestured around the restaurant. When was the last time you talked to someone who wasn't trying to get something from you? Oliver considered this question with the gravity of a philosopher contemplating existence. I honestly can't remember. That's the saddest thing I've heard all day. Emma's voice held genuine sympathy. Everyone needs someone who sees them as a person, not a bank account. For the next hour, they talked about everything except business and money. Emma shared stories about growing up in Queens with her grandmother, working multiple jobs to pay for college, and her dreams of maybe opening a small cafe someday. Oliver found himself revealing things he'd never told anyone about, feeling isolated by success, about losing friends who only wanted favors, about the pressure of making decisions that affected thousands of employees. I should let you get back to work, Oliver said finally, though he made no move to leave. Actually, my shift ended 20 minutes ago. I just didn't want to interrupt. Emma glanced at her phone, surprised by how quickly time had passed. Oliver reached for his wallet and pulled out several bills. The tip he left was more than Emma made in a week. Will you be working tomorrow night? Every night except Sunday. Emma stood up, still amazed that the evening had unfolded so unexpectedly. Good. I'll see you tomorrow, Emma, and thank you for treating me like a human being instead of a bank account. As Emma walked toward the staff room, she could feel Oliver watching her leave. Something had definitely changed between them. Something that felt both thrilling and terrifying. She had no idea that across the restaurant, Sophia Chen was staring in amazement at the sight of Oliver Montague smiling as he watched a waitress disappear into the back of the house. The Ice King had met his match, and Emma Sinclair had just turned her first day at the Golden Terrace into the beginning of something extraordinary. Emma fumbled with her keys outside the modest apartment building in Queens, exhaustion weighing down her shoulders like a heavy coat. 3 weeks had passed since that first evening with Oliver, and he had become a regular fixture at table 12. Every night he would arrive precisely at 8 o'clock, order something different, and spend hours talking with her during her breaks. The elevator in her building had been broken for months, so Emma climbed 4 flights of stairs to reach apartment 4B. She shared the small space with her grandmother Rosa, a spirited 70-year-old woman who had raised Emma after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12. Mija, you're home late again? Rosa called from the living room, where she sat knitting while watching her favorite telenovela. That fancy restaurant keeping you busy? Something like that. Emma kicked off her uncomfortable work shoes and padded into the kitchen in her stocking feet. How are you feeling today, Abuela? Good days and bad days, you know how it is. Rosa's voice carried the wisdom of someone who had learned to accept life's challenges with grace. But tell me about this man who has you glowing like a candle. Emma nearly dropped the glass of water she was pouring. What man? I never said anything about a man. Child, I raised you. I know when something is different. Rosa set down her knitting and studied Emma's face with the sharp eyes of a woman who missed nothing. You've been humming while you do the dishes. You check your phone constantly, and you spend extra time getting ready for work. Before Emma could deny these accusations, a knock echoed through the apartment. Both women froze. Nobody visited them at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night. Emma peered through the peephole and nearly fainted. Oliver Montague stood in the hallway, looking completely out of place in his expensive suit among the building's chipped paint and flickering fluorescent lights. Emma, open the door. I need to talk to you. His voice carried through the thin wood, urgent and strained. With shaking hands, Emma unlocked the multiple deadbolts and opened the door. Oliver stood there holding a large pharmacy bag, his usually perfect hair disheveled, and his gray eyes wild with something that looked like panic. How did you find where I live? Emma stepped into the hallway, pulling the door almost closed behind her. I have resources. That's not important right now. Oliver thrust the pharmacy bag toward her. These are for your grandmother. 3 months worth of her heart medication. Emma stared at the bag as if it contained explosives. Oliver, I can't accept this. It must have cost thousands of dollars. It cost exactly $2,400. That's pocket change for me, but I know it's everything for you. Oliver's voice was rough with emotion. Just take it, Emma. Please. Why? Emma's eyes searched his face. Why would you do this? Oliver ran his hands through his hair, destroying what remained of his careful styling. Because today I fired my assistant James for suggesting that I was getting too attached to a waitress. Because I spent 3 hours in board meetings thinking about your laugh instead of quarterly reports. Because I realized that for the first time in years, I actually look forward to something that has nothing to do with making money. The vulnerability in his confession hit Emma like a physical blow. This wasn't the controlled, arrogant billionaire who had walked into the Golden Terrace 3 weeks ago. This was a man who looked lost and desperate and completely human. Oliver, I know this is crazy. I know we barely know each other. But I can't stop thinking about you, Emma. You make me feel like myself instead of just a bank account with a pulse. Before Emma could respond, Rosa's voice called out from inside the apartment. Mija, invite the boy inside before the neighbors. Start gossiping. Emma's cheeks burned with embarrassment. You don't have to come in. I know this place isn't exactly what you're used to. I want to meet the woman who raised someone as remarkable as you. Oliver's smile was soft and genuine. The apartment was tiny but immaculately clean. Rosa had decorated with bright colors and family photos that told the story of a life filled with love despite financial struggles. Oliver seemed to take in every detail, from the second-hand furniture to the carefully tended plants on the windowsill. So, you're the famous Oliver, Rosa said, looking him up and down with the fearless assessment of a grandmother protecting her granddaughter. You're taller than I expected. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Sinclair. Oliver's formal tone made Emma smile. Call me Rosa, and sit down before you make me nervous with all that hovering. Rosa patted the cushion beside her on the worn couch. Emma, make some coffee, the good stuff we save for special occasions. As Emma busied herself in the kitchen, she could hear Rosa interrogating Oliver with the skill of a professional prosecutor. By the time she returned with 3 cups of coffee, Rosa had extracted Oliver's entire life story and was offering unsolicited advice about his business practices. The problem with rich people, Rosa was saying, is they forget that money is just paper. It's what you do with your heart that matters. Oliver accepted his coffee with hands that trembled slightly. You're right. I've spent so many years building walls that I forgot how to let people in. Walls keep out the bad, but they also keep out the good. Rosa's eyes twinkled with mischief. Emma has been talking about you, you know. Abuela. Emma's face turned crimson. What has she been saying? Oliver leaned forward with genuine interest. She says you're different when you're not trying to be important. She says you make her laugh and that you actually listen when she talks. Rosa reached over and patted Oliver's hand. Those are good qualities in a man. Oliver looked across the room at Emma, who was trying to disappear into the kitchen. I hope she also mentioned that she's the bravest person I've ever met. Most people are too intimidated to be honest with me. Honesty is the only policy in this family, Rosa declared. So I'm going to be honest with you right now. If you hurt my granddaughter, I will hunt you down and make your life miserable. I may be old, but I have friends in this neighborhood who owe me favors. Oliver's laugh was rich and warm. I believe you completely. And I promise you, Rosa, the last thing I want to do is hurt Emma. Later, after Rosa had retired to her bedroom with a not-so-subtle wink, Emma and Oliver sat on the small balcony that overlooked the city. The lights of Manhattan twinkled in the distance like fallen stars. Your grandmother is incredible, Oliver said, loosening his tie in the warm evening air. She raised me to believe that kindness matters more than money. Emma curled up in the plastic chair beside him. I think that's why your world seems so foreign to me. It is foreign. It's cold and calculating and lonely. Oliver stared out at the skyline he had helped shape with his business empire. But being with you makes me remember who I used to be before success changed me. Who were you before? Emma asked softly. Oliver was quiet for so long that Emma thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I was a kid from Brooklyn whose parents cleaned office buildings to pay rent. I was hungry most of the time and wore the same 3 shirts to school. I promised myself that someday I'd have enough money that I'd never feel powerless again. Emma reached over and took his hand. You're not powerless now. You're one of the most successful people in the country. But I'm still hungry, Emma, just for different things now. Oliver turned to look at her, moonlight highlighting the sharp planes of his face. I'm hungry for someone to see me as more than just my net worth. I'm hungry for genuine conversation and honest laughter and maybe even love. The word love hung between them like a bridge. Neither was sure they were ready to cross. Emma felt her heart racing as Oliver lifted their joined hands and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. I should go, he said, though he made no move, to leave. It's late, and you have to work tomorrow. Oliver, wait. Emma stood up as he rose from his chair. Thank you for the medication. Rosa needs it, and I was terrified about how I was going to afford it next month. You don't need to. Thank me. Taking care of people we care about is what we do. Oliver paused at the balcony door. Emma, would you have dinner with me tomorrow night? Not at the restaurant. Somewhere private where we can really talk. Emma's pulse quickened. This was the moment that would change everything between them. Yes, she whispered. I'd like that very much. Oliver's smile was radiant. I'll pick you up at 7. And Emma? Wear whatever makes you feel comfortable. You're perfect exactly as you are. After he left, Emma found Rosa waiting in the living room with a knowing smile. That boy is head over heels in love with you, Rosa announced with satisfaction. Abuela, it's not that simple. We're from completely different worlds. Love makes its own world, mija. The question is whether you're brave enough to live in it. As Emma lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of Oliver's unexpected visit, she realized that Rosa was right. She was falling in love with a billionaire, and tomorrow night would determine whether their different worlds could somehow become one. The charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum was the kind of event where Manhattan's elite gathered to see and be seen while writing checks for tax deductions. Emma stood beside Oliver in the Temple of Dender, feeling like she had stepped into a fairy tale that might turn into a nightmare at any moment. The emerald green dress Oliver had sent to her apartment fit perfectly, flowing like liquid silk around her curves. Diamond earrings that probably cost more than her yearly salary caught the light from the ancient temple's illumination. She looked like she belonged in this world of wealth and power, but inside she felt like an imposter waiting to be discovered. You're stunning, Oliver murmured, his hand warm on the small of her back as they moved through the crowd of donors and socialites. I feel like I'm wearing a costume, Emma admitted, watching women in designer gowns air-kiss each other with practice. Insincerity. You look more real than anyone else in this room. Oliver's gray eyes were intense as they studied her face. These people spend fortunes trying to buy what you have naturally. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the museum's entrance. A woman with platinum blonde hair and a white gown that probably cost more than most people's cars was making a dramatic entrance, cameras flashing as she posed for society photographers. Patricia Wells, Oliver said grimly, his entire body tensing. My ex-fiancé. Emma felt her stomach drop like a stone. The one you were supposed to marry. The one who called off our engagement when she realized I was more interested in building something meaningful than collecting trophy wives. Oliver's voice was bitter. She's probably here because someone told her I was bringing a date. Patricia. Wells moved through the crowd like a shark sensing blood in the water. She was undeniably beautiful in that polished, artificial way that money could buy. Everything about her screamed wealth and privilege, from her perfect blonde waves to her flawless makeup to the way she carried herself like she owned every room she entered. Oliver, darling, Patricia's voice was honey over steel as she glided up to them. How wonderful to see you here. And you must be the little waitress everyone's talking about. The insult was delivered with such sweet precision that Emma almost missed it. Almost. I'm Emma Sinclair, she said, extending her hand with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Patricia's handshake was limp and dismissive. How charming. Oliver always did have a thing for charity cases. Oliver stepped forward, his face darkening, with anger. Patricia, that's enough. Oh, don't be so serious, darling. I'm just curious about your new hobby. Patricia's laugh was like breaking crystal. Tell me, Emma, What's it like dating someone so far above your social class? It must be overwhelming. Emma felt heat rising in her cheeks, but before she could respond, Oliver's voice cut through the air like a blade. What's overwhelming is listening to someone who mistakes cruelty for cleverness. His tone was so cold that nearby conversations actually stopped. Emma has more class in her little finger than you've managed to acquire with all your family's money. Patricia's perfectly composed expression flickered for just a moment, revealing the ugly jealousy underneath. How noble of you to defend your little project. But we both know this won't last. People like her don't belong in our world. You're right, Emma said quietly, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. I don't belong in a world where people think their bank balance gives them the right to treat others like garbage. Emma turned and walked away, her silk dress rustling as she moved toward the museum's exit. She could hear Oliver calling her name, but she didn't stop. The fairy tale was over, and Cinderella was going home. She made it to the museum steps before Oliver caught up with her, his expensive shoes echoing against the stone as he ran. Emma, wait! Please don't leave because of her. It's not just her, Oliver. Emma turned to face him, tears finally spilling over despite her efforts to hold them back. It's this whole world. I don't fit here, and pretending I do is only going to hurt both of us. You fit with me, Oliver said desperately. That's all that matters. No, it's not. Emma's voice broke slightly. Your life is board meetings and charity galas and people like Patricia who think I'm some kind of entertainment. I'm a waitress from Queens, Oliver. I work double shifts to pay for my grandmother's medication. We live in different universes. Oliver stepped closer, his hands reaching for hers. Then let's create our own universe. Just you and me. That's not how the real world works. Emma pulled her hands away, the gesture feeling like tearing her own heart out. You need someone who can stand beside you at events like this without feeling like a fraud. Someone who understands your world. I don't want someone who understands my world. I want someone who helps me escape from it. Oliver's voice was raw with emotion. Emma, I love you. The words hung in the air between them like a prayer and a curse. Emma closed her eyes, feeling her resolve crumbling. Oliver, I love the way you laugh at my terrible jokes. I love how you treat everyone with kindness regardless of their bank account. I love that you see me as a person instead of a dollar sign. Oliver's voice grew stronger with each declaration. I love that you're brave enough to tell me when I'm being an ass, and gentle enough to take care of your grandmother, and smart enough to challenge my assumptions about everything. Emma opened her eyes to find Oliver on one knee on the museum steps, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. Around them, other gala attendees had gathered to watch the drama unfold. Mary. Me, Emma, not because I'm rich, but because I'm a better man when I'm with you. Because you make me want to use my resources to help people instead of just accumulating more wealth. Because I can't imagine my life without your honesty and warmth and incredible strength. The ring was beautiful, but not ostentatious. A single, perfect diamond that caught the light from the museum's facade. But Emma barely saw it because she was staring into Oliver's eyes and seeing her future reflected there. The prenup alone would be longer than most novels, she said through her tears, trying to joke because the moment was too overwhelming for serious words. No prenup. What's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. That's how marriage works. Oliver's smile was radiant. Besides, I have a feeling you're going to make me a lot richer in all the ways that actually matter. Emma looked around at the crowd of wealthy spectators, then back at the man kneeling before her on the cold museum steps. This wasn't the proposal she had imagined as a little girl, but it was perfect because it was them. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, I'll marry you. The crowd erupted in applause as Oliver slipped the ring onto her finger and swept her into his arms. In the distance, Emma could see Patricia Wells watching with the expression of pure fury, but she didn't care anymore. Let the society pages write whatever they wanted. She had found her prince, and he had found his queen. 6 months later, Emma stood in the kitchen of their new restaurant, Rosa's Table, watching Oliver serve meals to families who couldn't afford fancy dining but deserved delicious food made with love. They had used Oliver's resources to create something beautiful together, a place where good food and genuine hospitality mattered more than the size of your wallet. Rosa sat at the corner table, regaling regular customers with stories about how she had known from the beginning that her granddaughter would marry a good man. Oliver had moved them all into his penthouse, but they still spent most of their time in Queens, where the community had embraced the billionaire who treated everyone like family. "Mrs. Montague," Oliver said, sneaking up behind Emma and rapping, his arms around her waist. "Your husband would like to steal a kiss from the most beautiful chef in New York." "Just one kiss," Emma laughed, turning in his arms. "We have customers to feed." "One kiss," Oliver agreed, then proceeded to kiss her so thoroughly that the kitchen staff started applauding again. As Emma looked into her husband's eyes, she realized that Rosa had been right all along. Love really did make its own world, and theirs was more beautiful than any fairy tale because it was real, built on respect and laughter and the simple miracle of two people who had found their perfect match in the most unexpected place. The arrogant millionaire had finally met. His match and love had conquered all.